sometimes when I'm coaching folks at this point, they'll say, okay, well, Doug, how do you identify what those client or customer challenges are? What are how do we find those problems to see if what we're designing or what we're creating is going to be a good solution? Well, there are a couple of ways that you can do, a few ways you can do this. The first thing that you can do is just ask them, interact with your customers or clients, ask them what keeps them up at night. If you've got a good relationship with them, a lot of times they'll just tell you. They'll tell you what those things are. Another thing that you can do is if you have sales reps in your company, ask your sales reps. Your sales reps, basically they're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis that I mean, their whole goal is to identify what that person's problem is so that they can help them solve that. So have your salespeople make a list of the most frequently asked questions that they get from their customers or potential customers. And then what are the questions that they answer over and over and over again in calls or in Zoom meetings or in one-on-one meetings, those kind of things. That list can be gold for you when you're creating new content. Another thing that you can do is look at the comments on your social media posts. You want to encourage your social followers to give you feedback, and a lot of times they'll give you great ideas for topics and content. Another thing that you can do is look at your competitors' websites, their blogs, their posts, their social media feeds, because if they have done research as well, sometimes you can find ideas. I mean, obviously you don't want to copy what they're doing, but it might give you ideas on routes to go and places to do a little bit more research. If you're actually giving speeches and presentations, you can add a question and answer period to the agenda. Now, I'm not a big fan. If you've listened to my blog post or you've participated in some of our mini courses in the past, I'm not a real big fan of creating question and answer sessions. But those sessions, even though they're a little more challenging and a lot of times they're not great for the audience, they can be helpful for us to identify what we're kind of missing in our delivery. So simplest way though is just to put yourself in the shoes of the person that's in your audience. So like for instance, when I started writing that book, Fearless Presentations, back, a couple of decades ago, I didn't have a lot of time to do a bunch of market research. I mean, I had plenty of time, but by the time I got to the point where I was like, man, I got to write this, it was crunch time now. So I only had a few weeks to get this thing created because it had been promised to clients for months at that point. So I basically just try to picture myself as a person who was struggling with stage fright. And by the way, that wasn't really hard for me to do because at the time, at that point, I'd been that person less than a decade before I started writing that book. So I just made a list of all of the different things that a person might be struggling with when they stand up to speak in front of a group. And once I had that list, I basically had all the chapters of the book, and we've edited it. I have edited that book, 3 or 4 times over the years, and it's still just as applicable today as what it was back 20 years ago. The reason why is because the fear that people experience is still fairly similar to what it was years ago. I mean, obviously there's more things with technology that can be a challenge and cause more tension, but for the most part, it's still pretty accurate.